Today's video on Walk Through Texas History is the Fanthorp Inn State Historic Site here in Anderson, Texas. Join me, shall you? So here's the centennial marker for the Fanthorp Inn, built in 1834 by Henry Fanthorp. He actually had married twice before, but they both died. Never had any children when he married Rachel Kennard. And it was not a hotel at first, but then it became one, and it was a post office as well. And it was a hotel until 1867 to 1868 era. Here's the main house. As I said, it was built in 1834, and it was a private residence up until the late 60s, or early 70s, until the state was donating the land by the family and became a state park in 1977. We'll take a closer look inside and get a tour, and let's go do that now. Here's the sign as you enter the historic site. Gives you a little reference as to the time period that we're in when we visit the tour here. And here's some great pictures of the family, the Fanthorp household. There's Henry and Rachel, John Henry, Mary Ann, Major William Stone, son-in-law, Mary Stone, and Annie Virginia Stone. And it gives you a little history of the house and whatnot. Here's their information guide. It shows you where Anderson, Texas is, the Fanthorp Inn Historic Site. I'll give you a map too at the end. Just wanted to show you this. And here's the front with the stagecoach that we'll take a tour of here in a little bit. You've got the main entrance here with a main room to the right, a parlor room to the left, and there's two other rooms behind it with the dining room, and then to the right of that would be the kitchen. Almost all of this is original flooring. The very front porch is not, but right past that where that chair is, it's all original flooring.
See by the unevenness of the lines, the strokes, that it was a hand sawn job, probably a pit saw. One guy on above, one guy below, and kind of a pit, and working a saw between the two of them to make each piece. Boy, hey. Becomes the parlor. The parlor is kind of like the lobby of the inn. It's a place where you're relaxing, you get a drink, kind of wash down the dust of the trail. If you want to smoke or chew tobacco, Henry Fanthorp can provide all those things, all the comforts of home. For your average, typically your average male guest is kind of the man cave of the place, and any ladies that are traveling probably tended to by Mrs. Fanthorp. It's a place where you have an exchange of information. You have your newspapers that are coming in by way of the stagecoach, but also each person that comes through is like their own newspaper. They're bringing news from east, west, north, south, all coming to this hub and keeping this place from being so isolated. If you think about it, if it weren't for the stagecoach lines and the papers coming through, the people coming through, you'd be really much in the dark of what's going on in the outside world. So it's crucial to the people here to know what's going on, and having all the people coming through, giving them the stories of how things are, how's the war going, who's president now, who's in charge now. Also, your post office. So I know it looks like it's odd to have, there's a bedroom and there's a closet that's an office, but it actually has its own little door to access it. So the post office would have bags of mail coming in on the coach. You can come and pick it up on a regular schedule. You always want to make sure that you get your letters out on time. I like how the sign says open all reasonable hours. But they definitely had a certain organization to the way they run the mill routes. You want to make sure you get it out on the right day. Otherwise, you got to wait for a while till the next coach is coming through. There are a number of ways that beds were made back then. Some have rope suspension like this, some are planks, some were just stretched canvas. But for a rope bed, you do have a method for tightening it up. It occasionally sags. You have a bed key. You're able to put one leg through the loops that are coming through the sides. As you twist, it tightens it up. Typically have a secondary component, a peg that you use to hold tension as you work your way down the line. Now, occasionally we get the history myth that this is somehow related to sleep tight. Unfortunately, that's not really connected like that. Rope beds go back to Shakespearean times and beyond. The phrase sleep tight just means sleep soundly. That's a phrase that comes out in the 19th century, but it just means sleep soundly. Cistern is a place where they'll collect water off the roof. Water is a precious commodity. You're wanting to get it and save every bit you can. It has the benefit of being able to catch the rainwater, although it has the problem of attracting mosquitoes. We tend to have the issue of mosquitoes that are drawn to stagnant water. We know that in the case of the inn, that the Fanthorps actually passed away from yellow fever in later years, possibly from mosquitoes from their own cistern. So they make it so far, but in 1867, Henry passed away from yellow fever, October 31st, Halloween, and then 3 days later, Rachel passed away. The kitchen being built separate is mainly for the heat, the soot, and the smoke. You're trying to keep the heat out of the house. It's hot already. You don't want to add any more heat to it. Occasionally we hear folks have maybe the misled understanding that it's built separately for fire. Although fire is always a risk when you build a fire in a house, their main thing is, again, trying to keep the heat out. They're pretty good about their fire, and this one never burned down. It was knocked down in later years. The food was exceptionally good for the time. People wrote about coffee that was strong enough to bear up an iron wedge. So good, strong coffee. So things that were atypical for Texas is fresh beef. Most of the time you don't see Texas consuming fresh beef. They're raising cattle, but they're typically selling them for money to a northern market. But here at the inn, they can justify butchering and having fresh meat, fresh beef on the table because they have enough mouths to eat it. Each stagecoach that comes through can hold up to 18 people, plus a couple more if put on the luggage rack, but 18 people just in the seats. And so with each stagecoach, you have a couple that come during the day, one that stays overnight, and if you have people that are staying as long-term guests, you have over 100 people that could be here in a couple of days that could consume all that. You get to your room here. In this case, it's a common room. It's going to be for guys only, and you can share a bed with somebody. You may not even go to bed at the same time as the guys. So can you imagine being asleep and then having somebody roll in a bed with you there? I mean, we call security if that happened to us nowadays. But that was the expectation then. So for a little bit more, you can have a private room though. So this is, once again, common room, the cheapest seats. So each room is staged to show you a little bit about some of the people we know stayed here. We know a surveyor stayed for a little while. He was marking out the land locally. We talked earlier about how land was really cheap. Ladies typically didn't travel by themselves just for safety's sake, but we know of an example of a mom who stayed with 2 kids. So she was traveling by herself with 2 kids across Texas and stayed at the inn here. And a couple more men. So this again looks odd. There's one bed, but 2 guys would be sharing it. I mean, split the bill. A cheaper way to go. That guy there, I guess, is trying to keep people honest by keeping his saddle in his room as opposed to the stable. The room at the inn, although we don't know exactly where Sam Houston stayed, that was kind of an homage to him. We know that he stayed at the inn multiple times with his family as well. So he stayed in one of these rooms or multiple of these rooms. You know, at the bare minimum, he walked down the hallway.
So here's the exhibit barn and, of course, restrooms for the public. But the inside there is a stagecoach. Now he's going to give us a tour of that here in a second, but let's go take a quick look inside. Now here's the stagecoach itself. It's a reproduction of one that was built approximately the 1820s. He said it's going to be real similar to what they had at the time. Could hold 18 people on it, and he'll give us a little tour on that in a second. But here is the little plaques talking about Henry Fanthorp. Tells you when this stagecoach was built, the reproduction, and the belt buckle there is really cool as well. And then to the right, there's a little bit of information on the stages. Let's look at that. So here's some information on the stage coaches themselves, and it kind of gives you a little bit on each and every one. Now I won't go real in depth there, but it's really great. talking about this type of Concord stagecoach. Here's to the right of it would be their harnesses for the horses. There's 2 of them. And then here's a Texas travel map from 1857. Now that is just flat awesome. You've got the map there. You can see obviously Texas was mostly south and east. You were starting to get a little bit more towards the west. And here's about inns in the area. This is actually taken from newspapers, and the inn there where you can see Sam Houston stayed there, right there, General Sam Houston. And he stayed there in August 1858, it says. Here's a little bit to the right, talks about staying in the hotel, and right above it as well, the Brenham Hotel. There's some more information there, and it's a post office, so talks about that as well with the stamps, 1847. And there's Henry Fanthorp again. Now there's the Fanthorp Hall Hotel and dining room as relation to the rest of the city, of the town. Mr. Beardsley wrote a lot of letters that are now in the U.S. Archives that really give you a lot of insight to this town and shows you where his store was, and he kind of told you back and forth. It's really great information. If you have a chance to go look up Abel Beardsley in the archives, you can read some of his letters about the hotel when he stayed here with his wife and family, and then when he was by himself at first. And then let me get over here a little bit better. The angles, but as we talked about earlier, the lack of privacy in some of those rooms. And then there's the dining room. And then at the very top, that is a fly mechanism to get flies away. You would move it up and down, it would sway. Really, really cool.
Little bench. So with 3 packed into each one, you can fit 9 inside. By today's standard, that's a little tight.
It is a little tight.
Now across the back, there's a bench for 3 more. And then also above the driver, there's a bench for 3. And then between the driver and shotgun, you can fit 1 more person. So a grand total of 18 that could pack in, and wasn't unheard of to put people on the luggage rack too. Although I don't know if I want to go that far on the luggage rack.
Gotta have a cheap ticket.
The lines are reins that go in their mouth. That's what we think of commonly for steering them. Okay, so we can pull from side to side. We have commands. We have words that we use, kind of funny words. So if we want them to go to the right, we'll say G, come G. If we want them to go to the left, come haw. So G and haw. If we want them to stop, what do you say? Whoa, right? Very important. Otherwise, you don't have any brakes. So those are the words we use. You can also use a whip. Now, a whip isn't used to whip anything. We kind of get the wrong idea that a whip is used to hit animals, or worse, hit people. A whip was never designed to hit anything, but instead use sound. And it's not really there to even scare them. It's a tool that they've learned to understand the sound, the direction of the sound, which, depending on which side the whip is on, they know how to move. So the team would typically know to move to the left if I crack the whip on the right. Reverse, if I crack the whip on the left side, they'll move to the right. So if I crack overhead, it means we need to speed up. We got a steep grade up ahead. So things that are easily communicated with a whip, because my voice is only going to last so long shouting against the sound of the hooves and the wheels, but a whip cuts right through all that. So we say, come haul, yeah, come on. Or come G, crack the left side. Get on up, yeah, get on up, yeah, up, go. So we can use that. It speaks so much louder. It's kind of the punctuation to that. So it's kind of ties into those other 3 ways. We couldn't use the whip by itself. We couldn't really just use the lines by themselves. We need to have multiple ways to communicate with them, and the whip can be a part of that. And sometimes it's also just fun. As a driver, sometimes in the off times, they say they could get good enough to take a fly off of one of their mules without hurting them, right? Without touching them. And at the end of the day, wrap it up.
Well, that'll do it today, folks, here on Walk Through Texas History. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the Fanthorp Inn and historic site, along with the Stagecoach. Thanks to Mr. Ben Baumgartner for the tour, and I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it, folks, and until next time, have a good one. And be sure to like and subscribe and follow me on Facebook.